What if I told you that you were prejudiced and you didn't even know it, that you'd unconsciously believe certain stereotypes to be true? This is called implicit bias. We all have it, but unchecked, it can lead to negatively generalizing people or groups of people, and that's bad. Within the Black community, implicit bias is used among ourselves and is only amplified with the advent of social media. Hey, my name is Keegan, and today I will be showing you how unchecked implicit bias in the Black community can inadvertently reinforce certain stereotypes and how social media plays a role in it. We're going to analyze the example and point out all the implicit biases that were used so that the next time we see a person, we can actively acknowledge the implicit bias and try not to judge too quickly. Let's start. Now, before we pick apart this example, we first need to get a more formal idea of what implicit bias means. Here is a video that does a great job at summing up the concept or the idea of implicit bias. Let's take a look.
Implicit bias exists when we unconsciously hold attitudes towards others or associate stereotypes with them. For example, we often harbor negative stereotypes about others without consciously realizing that we do so. Implicit bias, which is also called unconscious bias or implicit social cognition, is a prejudice that is deep-seated within the brain, below the conscious level. Studies have demonstrated implicit bias against racial groups, genders, LGBTQ, and other marginalized groups. We may even be prejudiced against our own group, although we tend to favor our in-group with positive stereotypes and disfavor out-groups with negative stereotypes. Implicit bias often runs counter to people's conscious, expressed beliefs. Few physicians espouse racially discriminatory views, and yet doctors tend to recommend less pain medication for Black patients than for white patients with the identical injury. In other words, people can be explicitly unbiased, yet implicitly biased, according to psychologist Daniel Kelly and colleagues.
All right, now that we understand the meaning of what implicit bias is, let's actually use what we learned today on this post. So let's go over the post. Option A, 401k, makes $30 an hour, owns house, owns car, no kids. Option B, no job, staying couch to couch, no car, 12,000 followers on IG, and has 3 kids by 3 baby daddies. Who y'all choosing? At the bottom, you can see Gabby Sunday actually responded by saying, wow, G at Twista. I only like you as a rapper I forgot about in 2005, but good luck with option B. That's kind of presumptuous to assume that he would pick either one of these women, but again, where does that bias come from? Twista didn't mention anything about her weight. Twista didn't say either one of these women were better than the other. He didn't even mention anything about their personal lives or any, slurs that would allude to fat shaming. But for some reason, having these two women next to each other implies fat shaming. Is it the fact that people are outraged because they subconsciously believe that Bernice Burgos is better? Or the nicer, more civil thing that people say is, because Bernice Burgos is a model and Bernice isn't. Now, wouldn't that be really presumptuous to say that Gabby isn't a model, when the fact that she is technically a supermodel, so technically these women are both models, but somehow these women still should not share the same table. Somehow that putting these women next together, it validates one of them. But let's actually take a look at some YouTubers to get their opinions on why Twista was actually disrespecting Gabby.
Gary. I wanna hip you to the T. It's Gary, baby.
Boris City, baby. We all know and love her. I know, especially the special case, just love Miss Gabby, honey. Well, baby, this girl, honey, she said she didn't need a super offensive photo, y'all, to check out rapper Twista, y'all. Now, Twista was posting, y'all, a disgusting bullying meme, y'all. She said it was trying to destroy her, honey. And
Now, to the people at home, now you guys saw the post. Now, could you point out what was disgusting in the picture? For some reason, the way that we talk about it, it kind of implies that Gabby is some way involved with this disgustingness. But for some reason, people aren't necessarily explaining why.
later on, he had to go on ahead and apologize to this girl, talking about the Precious Star. Now, they're saying, y'all, that she brilliantly clapped back, honey, at the fast spitting them. See, y'all, after he posted a meme, honey, displaying a side-by-side photo, y'all, of Miss Precious and model Bernice Burgos, y'all. Precious went in, baby. She obliterated him, they said, baby. Obliterated.
And she should have.
Yeah, well, he should have damn read it before he posted.
So whenever someone mentions Precious instead of Gabby, that's pretty much the bias or the image that they're associating with her unconsciously to show that it's rude to put her up there because they think of her as Precious and not Gabby Cinnabang.
The thing about Precious is I think that she feels as though she's the ugly person in the room. That's the sadness in her, you know, that she's struggling to be like someone else. She's struggling to be normal because she feels as though she isn't. And I think we've all had days where we didn't feel like we were normal. We just want to be normal. Maybe it's because I'm a girl, but I think a lot of my friends and we all struggled with that. And it's a very high school feeling, you know, like, oh, I wish I were like other girls, or I wish I were like other people, you know. And I kind of, like, it's in me. That's where I get it from. Because it's you know, I haven't used it in a long time because I've since grown up, you know, and I've come to realize that I am normal and that there is in fact no normal. Anyway.
Message!
Which was a black man. He should have never reshared it. He was very irresponsible with his platform, and it's a bad look that here this woman again has nothing to say about you, is not thinking about you, not worried about you, she's not poking at you, she has nothing to say about you and your washed up ashy A, yet you took it upon yourself to ridicule her and drag her into some competition that she doesn't even want to be part of. And I think it speaks to the insanity that a lot of black men might have mentally, because for him to think in any sort of way that he meant no harm, what do you mean you meant no harm? Did you think that you were going to make her feel good about herself, that you're comparing her to a woman that has worked within the industry as a model? Like,
Now all of this is implied and not necessarily based off of anything Twista said. Now, she made the point of saying that, you know, what woman wouldn't ever want to be compared to a model, and pretty much other models like to be seen in the same light as other models. I think by you saying that, you kind of would have to assume that Gabby isn't a model. But in actuality, Gabby is a model. Hell, Gabby is as much as a model as Bernice is. You know, they both have graced covers of, you know, magazines, done photo shoots, and, you know, done things that, you know, relied on their physical attributes that were shown as beautiful. By saying that one is not the other, you kind of go into the stereotype of saying that Bernice is stereotypically ugly. Bernice is stereotypically beautiful, and you go off of that Gabby is stereotypically ugly, which again plays into that unconscious bias.
Within the industry as a model, like, how would any woman feel regardless of your size? Nobody wants to be compared to a model, especially when they're doing it as a way to mock you. And you really have to give it to black men. I know they had a lot of y'all fooled, making you believe that they were cool with this and they were just going to congratulate her, but they were sitting back scheming. Notice how they didn't just outright compare her to a white or non-black woman. woman because it would have been obvious. They made it a point to compare her to a woman that has the IG body type. And I'm not even knocking Bernice because Bernice is gorgeous to me. Outside of her body, she has a very pretty face. Women in general would feel insecure or even jealous being compared to somebody like a Bernice Burgos, but they made it a point to do it with a woman that they would consider desirable, but also one that is known for dating black men. And
there are a few implicit biases that are worth unpacking in this particular thing. One implicit bias is that black men don't want overweight black women, and that black men are somewhere sitting in the shadows to take down an overweight black woman. She may like the way that, Bernice's face looks or how she shaped her body. That doesn't necessarily mean that black men share that same exact view. There are a lot of black men that love Gabby for the same superficial reasons that they love Bernice. Making a distinction between the two shows that you value one over the other, and inadvertently it lowers the self-esteem of black women that may look like Gabby into believing that black men would not want them. And that's kind of the problem with social media. It ends up teaching you and confirming the insecurities and the implicit biases that we may have about ourselves in our own community, which needs to stop.
My gosh, now where do I begin? Well, let's be clear. Washed up rapper Twista knew exactly what he was doing when he purposely targeted Gabby. For those of you that may have missed it, she has been losing a lot of weight for years and just recently got engaged to her boyfriend right after Thanksgiving last month. Now, I think had her fiance been black, this would not even have been a story. I have shown you ladies time and time again that because Gabby isn't with a black man, she is thrown away by ninjas. No one is making fun of Surgeon General Jerome Adams for his big Becky, Lacey Adams, and her husband is a medical doctor, for goodness sake. Now, this is all about some butthurt brothers fat shame.
Again, what did Twista say that was so controversial about either of these women? Now, in this particular video, the implicit bias that is being shown is that black men aren't capable of loving Gabby Cinderbag. And the other part of that is that black men wouldn't like her because of her weight. And again, as I talked to you before, there are many men that love women that look like Gabby Cinderbag. To imply that lowers the self-esteem of other women that have the same shape as Gabby Cinderbag into thinking that black men just instinctively wouldn't like them, which again is wrong. Now, you're probably thinking, Keegan, you only showed me 3 videos of people's opinion of this whole situation. That doesn't necessarily show implicit bias in the whole black community. And you're right to a degree, but the bigger problem with that is the fact that these videos, along with others, help influence the whole idea of implicit bias, which grows more bias within our community, causing us to automatically assume and think negative things of groups of people, in this case black men, into negative stereotypes. Now if you were to scroll through any of these comment sections, you will end up seeing a large amount of people that believe the same thing that these speakers are saying. And that comes into the problem. Their implicit bias has now been confirmed inside of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, meaning that they've effectively created hundreds of thousands of people that believe that Gabby Cinderbag indirectly should not be in the same place as Bernice, and that black men are the reason for that, and that black men ultimately don't like women that look like Gabby. And again, if you teach hundreds of thousands of people this, they end up going out teaching more people and more people, where the whole idea of, these stereotypes just keep on flowing and flowing, and there's nothing that you can do about it unless we actually challenge our implicit biases. This is not to call out any particular person because, for a second, I may have felt a little guilty or felt that it was implied that something was wrong with the picture, but I realized that myself, I would have to assume that, she's this. And I'm like, you know what, she's not, and I don't want to believe what society is telling me about her. Ironically, when people are trying to defend her. But this happens every single day, whether it's, you get onto the mail or, just how you may see the opposite sex. Like, shoot, there's opinions that I see online that are crazy. That, black women hate black men and black men hate black women, which we collectively are chanting that. But inwardly, like when you look around your neighborhood, when you look at, your people, like the black people that you love and that love you, you realize that some of those things are not true. We don't collectively, because if we did, we wouldn't be talking about all the lovey hearts and stuff like that. It just don't make any sense. But anyway, that's my video. I hope you I hope this challenged your implicit bias. It definitely challenged mine. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have anything else that you would like to, suggest that I do or talk about, let me know. I'm always willing to learn. And then also, if you have a differing opinion, hit me up in the comments or email me. Probably put the email in the description somehow. But anyway, email me and we can talk about it. I'm willing to learn, and in order for me to break away from my implicit bias, I need to go out and actually listen to different people so that I can get different perspectives on life, so that I can knock away all these other, negative things that I may have about different people. But I look forward to speaking with you guys. Thank you. Bye.